We are asked to solve the inverse trig function, y equals arc sine root 3 over 2. This equation is asking us to find the angle theta. It is the same as saying find the angle theta whose sine of that angle theta is root 3 over 2. And it means as well, as soon as it says arc sine, it says that that angle theta that we are solving for, this angle theta, has to be in the principal domain for sine. Now, the principal domain for sine is from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. That is angles in the fourth quadrant or the first quadrant. Another way of writing the arc sine or the arc cosine or the arc tangent is by writing y equals cosine to the negative 1. This is exactly the same as writing y equals arc cosine. In this case, we are again asked to find the angle whose cosine of that angle, theta or alpha, whatever name you'd like to give the angle, the cosine of that angle is negative root 3 over 2. But once it is cosine to the negative 1 or arc cosine, we are asked to find an angle in the principal domain for cosine theta, for the cosine function. And the principal domain for the cosine function is between 0 and pi, the first quadrant or the second quadrant. A third example would be y equals arc tangent of negative 1. Again, we are asked to find the angle. Find the angle whose tangent is negative 1. Again, that angle, because it says arc tangent, or if it said tangent to the negative 1, the same thing as arc tangent, that angle has to be an angle in the principal domain for the tangent function. And the principal domain for the tangent function is between negative pi over 2 or pi over 2, all the way to pi over 2. That is, you have to give back an angle in the fourth or the first quadrant. Solving the inverse trig equation, y equals arc sine root 3 over 2, we have a look at the unit circle and we see that the reference angle is pi over 3. Because the principal domain for sine theta is any angle between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2, my answer must be the acute angle. So in this case, the reference angle is my angle. So my solution would be y is the reference angle pi over 3. Pi over 3 is arc sine root 3 over 2. The next equation. If we now had to solve y equals arc sine negative root 3 over 2, we still know that the reference angle is pi over 3. The reference angle hasn't changed. The reference angle is always the acute angle in the first quadrant. Because the principal domain for sine is any angle between negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, in other words, an angle in the fourth or the first quadrant, because the sine is negative, the sine of the angle is negative root 3 over 2, my answer must be an angle in the fourth quadrant. So my solution, the angle that I'm looking for, would be negative pi over 3. Solving the equation y equals arc cosine root 3 over 2, we would look at the unit circle and see that the reference angle for cosine is pi over 6. The principal domain for the cosine is between 0 and pi, the first or the second quadrant. Because it's arc cosine of plus root 3 over 2, we know that the angle must be in the first quadrant. So again, the angle we are looking for is the same as the reference angle. Our solution would be y is pi over 6. Solving the inverse trig equation, y equals arc cosine negative root 3 over 2. Again, looking at the unit circle, we would see that the reference angle is pi over 6. The principal domain for cosine is any angle between 0 and pi. Because the cosine is negative root 3 over 2, the angle must be in the second quadrant. So my angle y would equal pi minus pi over 6. So my solution would be the angle in the second quadrant, 5 pi over 6. Solving now the inverse trig equation, y equals arc tangent 1. We would look at the unit circle and see that the reference angle is pi over 4. The principal domain for the tangent function we know is any angle between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. Because it is plus 1, we want to find the angle whose tangent is plus 1. My answer would be in the first quadrant. So my reference angle is the angle that I'm looking for. Y would equal pi over 4. And in the last example, we are looking to solve the inverse trig equation, y equals arc tangent negative 1. We have the same reference angle as the example before, pi over 4. The principal domain for the tangent function, is any angle between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. Because tangent of the angle that I'm looking for is negative 1, my angle must be in the fourth quadrant and not in the first quadrant. So my solution would be minus the reference angle. So y would equal negative pi over 4.